Really interesting games, really complicated chess. That's the way the players like it. They both like to confuse the opponent and play great tactical chess. I'm looking forward to an amazing match, Yovi.
Yeah, and we have liftoff as Hikaru opens up with a queen pawn. This is really similar to the style of their match last year. Then we are seeing e6, that king's pawn defending the center, and the knights are coming out, and those pawns get traded, which means the center is really stable. It's going to be a little bit of a maneuvering game, but we're going to see how Hikaru sets the pace of the game. Steps back with the bishop, and if he wants to go full on aggressive, well, hang on a second here. Arjun's saying, I'm developing that bishop, and we could be seeing endgame time.
That's right. A lot of times white plays queen f3 here and takes on f6, ruining the pawn structure, giving black the two bishops. Often, white plays queen c2 earlier in the game, controlling the f5 square, so black doesn't get bishop f5 in. If white wants to play for an advantage, I think one of the main ways to do it is queen f3, but it's game one. Hikaru played more staid with bishop to d3, trading off the bishops. This isn't considered to give white any advantage. It's just Hikaru wants to get a position and slowly outplay his opponent and not go into an endgame right away. So more Hikaru's style to keep the queens on the board.
Yeah, he keeps the queen on the board, so no endgame for us, but we'll see right now what's going to be happening. As I wondered whether the king will go to the other side. No, we have our answer. The king goes to the right, and, well, we see Hikaru, he's trying to get some maneuverings going on the left side of the board. Arjun says no, and now the rook comes. And I got to say that Hikaru has to be a little bit careful, because if he does not keep an eye on the left side of the board, Arjun is going to go on the attack there. And that's exactly what happens as he goes to secure a home for his knight.
Yeah, so Hikaru wants to play in the center with f3, e4, and Arjun playing queenside counterplay, b5, a5, knight b6, knight c4, and one of my favorite maneuvers, Yovi, which we've talked about the last 2 days for white and black in these queen pawn openings, is getting the knights to d6 and d3, and Hikaru plays knight to c1 to put his knight on d3. Knight on d3 controls all the key squares. Black's knight is on c4, which is even better than d6. So this is a really strong maneuvering game, both sides improving their knights. The question is white going to play e4 anytime soon, or will that weaken the d4 pawn too much? Or is Arjun going to play b4 and gain some space on the queen side? Or will Arjun play a4, solidifying his knight on c4, stopping b3 later? So both sides have their pluses. The engine says it's about equal, both sides maneuvering their pieces. Seems like both sides are pretty happy, playing pretty quickly. And you know what's changed? One thing has changed, Yovi, and you won't be surprised. Arjun's heart rate is the same, 56. Hikaru doubled his heart rate, 127. So it's a big difference from the start of the game to right now. For some reason, Arjun's heart rate never goes up. Must be one of the world's great athletes. And as the game gets more complicated, like a normal person, Carl's heart rate goes up, like a lot of the other competitors that we've seen in this tournament.
Yes, yesterday, I got to say, Arjun's heart rate almost made 100.
What?
Almost, but yet not quite making it into the triple digits as the bishop comes out. And there is a question on white's pawn in the middle. And now it's time for Hikaru to make up his mind, because Arjun is forcing the pace of the game, and this was not the pawn advance I had in mind. I thought the other pawn next to it would be advancing up and white would have a very strong center, but Hikaru is saying, you know what? I'm going to force that bishop backwards, and I'm going to secure a strong square for my knight. This is super interesting from Hikaru, unexpected as well, as Arjun now starting to think.
Yeah, this is a very unexpected move because it makes the white bishop on f2 very blockaded. I thought white would play e4 because the bishop on f2 was defending the d4 pawn. I like the way Arjun makes the most obvious move, bishop f6, and the engine says not good. I mean, bishop f6, completely normal move. It's possible the engine wanted to kick the knight out of e5 when it goes there with something like f6 later, and now the white knight can just sit on e5 the rest of the game. But I'm pretty concerned about Hikaru's bishop on f2. That doesn't seem very strong to me. Wow, and Arjun immediately captures the knight on e5. That surprises me also, and plays b4, attacking on the queen side. The game is up and down, to and fro. The engine still says it's equal, but both sides have their advantages. Now with the f pawn gone, white has the f file for the rook. f7 pawn could become weak, and the bishop can be remaneuvered to a better square since f2 is really passive. So yeah. Hikaru playing in the center and king side, Arjun playing on the queen side. Well, the only advantage in the position is Arjun's heart rate. He's always really calm, and the game is just beginning.
The game is certainly just beginning, and there was a critical moment there on our screens because we just saw that Hikaru really did not like the opening up on the left side of the board, so he drops his knight back in order to defend the pawn. But this allows Arjun to break forward. Look at him. He is activating the game in order to get his knight into the position. And now for Hikaru, he has so unpleasant questions. First up, how is he going to deal with that knight that's wedged in his side of the board?
That's a beautiful knight on c4, Yovi. Black got exactly what he wanted. Arjun has a knight on Hikaru's side of the board. He's advancing on the queen side. Black has a lot of counterplay already. I'd say opening and middle game advantage to Arjun with all the play that he has. Hikaru's play, conversely, on the king side, I don't see it really going anywhere anytime soon. So I like Black's position. I like the way Arjun's playing. Arjun has a 2-minute time advantage, so it looks good for him.
It does, and there's a lot of tension on the board. There's plenty of possibilities for Hikaru to open up the position. The problem is none of them really favor him. For instance, if he gets up the A pawn, if he picks up the A pawn and just trades that pawn on B4, the problem is that the rook is also going to get mobilized and into the game. And if you take the other pawn, well, it's the knight that jumps into the center. And, you know, those double pawns that white has, they don't make the best impression at all. And as Ben has highlighting, look at that white bishop. It's a little bit bad.
Not very good. The knight on b1, pretty passive also. Black has all the pawns advanced on the queen side. Knight on c4 is amazing. Advantage Black. Hikaru's position is not lost by any means. It's just that it looks like Hikaru's fighting for equality. And finally, Hikaru kicks out the knight on c4. He realizes it's been there too long, it's too strong, and the knight goes to a3. And the question is, over the next 3 or 4 moves, will Arjun be able to advance the queenside pawns and get those B and C pawns going before Hikaru gets anything going in the center and the king side?
Yeah, this is exactly what Arjun has to plan to do. The thing is, though, he can't quite do it just yet because the queen has been nicely positioned to keep an eye on that rogue B pawn. So now Arjun has to go a different direction, maybe capture pawns in the middle, maybe come out with the queen and just offer some defense. So really cagey position. And I feel that despite Hikaru putting his knight there on the edge of, right there on the starting square, that there's so much tension that anything can still happen.
That's right. And I was alluding to earlier when I had the analysis board up that Black might reposition his knight to e6 in front of the rook, putting pressure on the d4 pawn, defending the c5 pawn. And if somehow Black can defend the b6 pawn again, which Arjun just did with queen e7, I was thinking queen b6, but we won't split hairs. Now Black can try to play c4 now that the pawn is defended on b4. The engine doesn't like queen e7, puts it in front of the rook. It has some defense of the f7 pawn in case white is able to use the open f line to his advantage. So queen e7, good for offense and defense. But the engine thinks that white is close to equalizing now. Obviously, white is a worse position. And once again, another move the engine doesn't like. He took on a3, but he took on c5. And now Arjun finally has a passed pawn on the queen side. He has a passed a pawn. Now Hikaru opens up in the center. Typically, the bishops want open positions, and we were making fun of Hikaru's bishop earlier. Bishop on f2 was blocked by everything. Now the bishop is opening up. But since Black has that beautiful passed pawn on a3, and White's doesn't really have any passed pawns, the engine still likes Black and says Arjun has the advantage, as well as a 2-minute time advantage.
He's got an advantage on the time, in heart rate, and absolutely everything, because he can also snatch a pawn. And you and I both like our extra material, and this is the point that pawn in the middle for white, it is vulnerable, and in comes that knight. That rook has to be driven backwards. You don't want to be trading off the bishop for the knight. And you know, they always say it is the quality rather than the quantity, and that quality of that black pawn all alone on the left, that is gonna be gold. And there was some sneaky ideas. What is this? We saw rook takes pawn, a sacrifice.
Sacrificing to open up the black king. Hikaru, I think, more of a desperate sacrifice than thinking it was good, because black was really solid, and
yeah, we have to investigate this, because he's given up a full rook for this. His whole idea is he wants to chase away that queen, open things up against the king. And as you saw, this is a desperate time for Hikaru. Things were not going his way. So let's just break down exactly what happened whilst the players are thinking. So now the rook came in, attacks the queen. And now there's a decision to be made. If you move that queen out of the way, well, look, there's the queen takes pawn, as you're indicating. Also, the bishop starts to have an eye on those dark squares. So I don't think you can move the queen.
no, Hikaru went all in because black's a-pawn was too strong. There was no attack unless Hikaru sacrificed. And the engine really likes black, but this is really putting Arjun to the test. Instead of slowly winning by taking the b3 pawn, promoting the a pawn, as you can see on the screen, Hikaru is putting the test to Arjun, sacrificing a rook, attacking black's king, and trying to put the pressure on Arjun. Arjun thinking a long time now. Hikaru has caught back up on the clock because the position is so complicated. And wow, the engine wants to play a move I probably wouldn't consider. King to g8, stopping queen takes h6 check. And the idea is, if you take the queen, the knight can take, and the white bishop is completely blockaded out of the attack. The knight on e6 is defending, and black still has the trump past a pawn, which is going to eventually win the game. So even though black loses a queen for a rook, black is already a rook ahead. So two rooks for a queen. With the knight on e6, the king is safe.
Yeah, but you have to actually accept that that queen is going to disappear from the board. And sometimes that's a very difficult thing to do. We see Hikaru not entirely happy as Arjun ponders. Now he has to either step back with the king. Maybe he can also slide the rook over to the corner to defend the pawn that is under fire on h6. It's critical, but by the way, black's best move by far is retreating the king. That is the best move, and no, this is not the way forward, because now there's going to be a repetition. Hikaru is just going to give check, check, check with the queen, and black cannot escape, and it's going to be a draw. Whoa, that was quite the save from Hikaru with that Hail Mary shot.
King g8, really hard to find.
Very
computer move.
Completely inhuman, so very fair result there. Draw, but what a shot there. On the brink of defeat, Hikaru finds this great move just to make Arjun uncomfortable.
Strategically, Hikaru was getting outplayed. Black had all the...
Chess Jihad.